Joe and Lora had been married for many years. From the outside, theirs looked like the perfect love story, and truly, in many ways, it was. They were best friends, lovers, partners, and everything. But one thing had been missing from their home: the sound of a child's laughter. Despite being childless, their home was always full of joy. You would never catch them arguing or quarreling over their situation, not even once. Joe made it his mission every day to see his wife smile. He would sit with Lora for hours, talking, laughing, and cracking jokes, turning their living room into a space of peace and light. No topic was off limits, and no pain was ever allowed to sit in silence for too long. Lora, on her part, had made up her mind not to dwell too much on their inability to conceive. She feared that the weight of the matter could drown her in sadness or even cause health problems. She was already prone to high blood pressure, and worrying wouldn't help. So instead, she chose joy. Even if it was hard some days, she chose to stay hopeful and lean on her husband's love and support. Together, they had tried everything people said could help: herbs, roots, and traditional concoctions from different regions, some bitter, some tasteless, some even unbearable. Yet, nothing worked. In fact, the more they tried, the more confusing and frustrating things became. They had seen different herbalists, gone for countless tests, and followed advice from well-meaning friends and family. But still, no child came. After years of trying and failing, Joe and Lora became tired. Tired of false hope, tired of the endless questions from outsiders, tired of swallowing bitter herbs and getting no results. But even in their tiredness, they did not lose their faith. Deep down, they still believed that one day, God would answer them. They held on to that belief like a treasure they refused to let go of. Their love for each other only grew stronger with time. Every evening, they would sit on their porch or in their small living room, talking about everything and nothing. Sometimes, Joe would make funny faces just to make Lora laugh. Other times, Lora would sing songs from their youthful days, and Joe would dance in that silly way that always made her laugh until her stomach hurt. To anyone watching, it was hard to believe they were going through such a deep personal struggle. But that was the beauty of Joe and Lora's story. They had turned their pain into laughter, and their waiting into worship. Though they had no child yet, they were rich in love, and in that love, they found the strength to keep hoping, one day at a time. One quiet evening, Joe and Lora were sitting outside their house, as usual, laughing and talking about life. Suddenly, a friend of Joe's came to visit. After chatting for a while, the man leaned forward and said something that made both Joe and Lora sit up straight. "Haven't you heard about the old woman in the forest?" he asked. "Her name is Agnes. People say she has special powers that can make a barren woman get pregnant. Many have gone to her, and they came back with good news." Joe and Lora looked at each other, surprised and unsure of what to think. They had heard many stories before, most of them ending in disappointment. But still, a tiny spark of hope lit up in their hearts. Joe quickly asked the man where they could find this old woman. "She lives deep in the bush," the man explained. "You'll walk a narrow path into the forest. When you see a large tree with red cloth tied to it, turn left. You'll find her small hut hidden among the trees." The next morning, Joe and Lora packed a small bag and followed the directions carefully. The forest was thick and quiet, filled with the sounds of birds and rustling leaves. After a long walk, they finally saw the big tree with the red cloth and turned left, just as the man had said. Soon, they found a tiny hut made of mud and sticks. An old woman with wrinkled skin and sharp eyes was sitting outside on a wooden stool. She looked up as they approached, as if she had been expecting them. "You want a child," she said calmly, even before they could speak. "I can help you. Lora will give birth to a baby boy." Joe and Lora were shocked. They hadn't even told her why they came, yet she already knew. For a moment, their hearts filled with joy. But then the old woman added something strange. "There is just one condition," she said. "When the child grows to a certain age, he must marry me." Lora gasped, and Joe's face changed. The woman was old enough to be the boy's great-grandmother. The idea sounded crazy, even frightening. They looked at each other, unsure of what to say. But then, the years of childlessness flashed through their minds. The sleepless nights, the tears, the failed herbs, the prayers. Desperate and blinded by hope, they agreed. "We promise." Joe said quietly, though his voice shook. Agnes handed them a small clay cup filled with water. "Drink this," she said. "Then go home. Lora is already pregnant." They drank the water and left, still unsure if what just happened was real. Weeks passed, and then months. One morning, Lora woke up feeling sick. She began to notice the changes in her body. Her belly slowly began to grow. She was finally pregnant. Joe and Lora were overjoyed. Their house, once quiet and calm, was now filled with excitement and laughter. They began preparing for the baby, buying tiny clothes, painting the nursery, and dreaming of what their child would look like. But in the middle of their joy, the old woman's strange condition haunted them. Every time they talked about the future, they would suddenly go silent, remembering the promise they had made. Still, they said nothing to anyone. They kept it to themselves, hoping that maybe, just maybe, it was all a bad dream that would fade away. They had no idea that their decision would soon lead them into a storm they never expected. After 9 months, Lora gave birth to a bouncing baby boy. The joy in their home knew no bounds. Joe and Lora danced, sang, and praised God. Their years of waiting had finally come to an end. They named the baby Peter. Peter was a beautiful child, full of life. As he grew, he became more handsome, smart, and intelligent. Joe and Lora loved him deeply. They didn't joke with anything concerning him. They gave him everything he needed and raised him with love and care. At age 3, they enrolled Peter in school. He did well in his studies and made his parents proud. Time flew quickly, and before they knew it, Peter had entered senior secondary school. One day, as Joe and Lora were relaxing in their living room, there was a knock on the door. It was Agnes, the old woman from the forest. Her face looked serious. "It is time," she said. "Your son must marry me, as you promised." Joe and Lora were shocked. "But he is still in secondary school," Lora exclaimed. "He's just a boy." Agnes looked at them coldly. "That is not my concern. A promise is a promise. If you refuse, Peter will die." Fear filled their hearts. They had no choice. Even though it broke their hearts, they agreed to her demand. When Peter came back from school, they sat him down and explained everything: the deal they had made, the price they had to pay, and what would happen if he refused. Peter was in shock. He cried bitterly. "You want me to marry a woman old enough to be my grandmother?" he asked, his heart heavy. But seeing the fear in his parents' eyes, he sighed and said, "I know you both want what's best for me. If this will save my life, I will do it." The wedding was planned quickly. On the wedding day, Peter wore a suit, but there was no smile on his face. He was not happy. Agnes stood beside him, smiling, while Peter could barely look at her. People who came to the wedding were confused and surprised. They whispered, wondering why a young man like Peter would marry an old woman. After the wedding, as they got home, something unexpected happened. A man of God, who had attended the wedding, followed them quietly to their house. He knocked and entered with authority. "I saw what happened," he said. "This is not normal. This is not the will of God. This boy is under a dark covenant, and it must be broken." He lifted his Bible and began to pray. The atmosphere changed. Agnes shouted and tried to stop him, but the man of God continued praying with power. Suddenly, Agnes screamed, fell to the ground, and vanished before their eyes. Joe, Lora, and Peter were frozen in shock. "She's gone," the man of God said calmly. "She can never harm your family again. Your son is free. Go and enjoy your life." Tears of joy filled their eyes. Joe and Lora hugged Peter tightly, thanking God for his mercy and deliverance. Peter smiled again, this time from his heart. At last, he was free. From that day on, their home was filled with joy. They lived happily as a family, with peace in their hearts and praise on their lips. Moral lessons: 1. Be careful of the promises you make, especially in times of desperation. 2. Some blessings come with hidden prices. Seek God's will before accepting anything. 3. No matter how deep your problem is, God can still deliver you. Never lose hope. 4. There is nothing too hard for God. He shows up at the right time. 5. When you wait on God patiently, He rewards you beyond your imagination. Thank you message. Thank you so much for watching this story. If you enjoyed it and learned something from it, please give this video a thumbs up, drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. More powerful and inspiring stories are coming your way, and I don't want you to miss out. Stay blessed, stay strong, and keep trusting God. See you in the next story.